So this is totally 40 days class, and we are going to start with the basics. Okay, so we are going to discuss. So I will write it down step by step what we are going to discuss on day-to-day basis. So this week, the entire week we will be discussing. So I will say week one. Okay. So in this week one, the first topic we are going to discuss is what is the basics of cloud. Okay. So in this cloud, the subtopics are cloud and cloud computing, types of cloud. So in these types of cloud, we will discuss what are deployment models, service models, and after that, we will discuss some basics of networking. Okay. And in the second thing, so we will see basics of Linux commands. I think you are well aware of Linux, right?
Yeah.
Or you
Yeah.
want something to be added?
No, I'm aware of Linux.
So we will see some basics of Linux commands, basic commands. Okay. So which we normally use in our day-to-day basis. Okay. So
Okay.
after this, we will be discussing about the Azure terminology. Okay. So Azure terminology, we will understand. The first thing we will understand is what do you mean by a region? Availability zone. And after that, we will understand what do you mean by a data center. Exactly. Okay. So once we cover this one, so we will cover Azure Virtual Network. So in this Azure Virtual Network, it will take around 3 to 4 days. So on the first day, we will discuss about what is VNet. Second thing, we will discuss what do you mean by a subnet. Third one, routes. Fourth one, we are going to discuss about the network security group and VNet peering. So peering is nothing but it is a VNet peering. So these are the basic things which we are going to discuss as part of week one. Okay. So in between, if there is something which I need to add, I will add there. Okay.
Okay. And may I know that who all are the attendees? Only me or?
Yeah, and you and Kishore will be there in this call. Okay.
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 So Kishore also part of this learning program or?
Yeah, he's
Or
also part of this
he's
learning program.
okay.
Okay. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah. So this is the content for week one. So majorly we will covering all these things. Okay. So any questions till now? So regarding to this one?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to let you know something like you can go with the fast track. To me, it's honestly, I'm okay with that because I'm from the infrastructure background. All my past experience in the infrastructures only, so I can easily grab that. Things only that terminology is different in that cloud network. Otherwise, the operational wise, it's similar. So I'm okay with that. But
No, you
you
want the
can
fast
catch.
track.
Yes, no, you can catch up. You can discuss with if Kishore is okay, then I'm okay.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So
All
already
I
he also
want,
have it.
like, yes, all I want, like, more like, uh, real-time scenario of a project kind of approach
Okay.
while you're teaching. So let's say, if we completed, one things, then I need, some assignments or, some project, so that, we can, work on the project and come up with, solution with the what we learned, so that, it will be useful for us to put it in our resume, like, yeah, solid, experience kind of, sentences, and marketing,
Yeah.
ourselves as a cloud engineer with the experienced people.
Okay. Got it. So you want me to cover the basics, or I can straight away I can go to the Azure VNet directly. So you know all
You
this
can,
technology?
yes, no need to be, spend, much time. Just, it's a one or two lines, that's more than enough for, up to the
Yeah.
three,
Yeah,
and we
sure.
can, go with, virtual network. And if, everything is, if Kishore agreed.
Yeah, he's fine, I think. So Kishore, are you fine with that, right?
Yes, yes, I'm fine.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So let me start with basics of cloud. Okay. So I think everyone knows in today's market, we are learning or we are hearing about this one very commonly. So let me give you just 10 minutes of introduction about the cloud and what are different models and everything. So whenever we discuss about the cloud, we are just saying that we are accessing the resources over the internet. Okay. So whatever the resources are there are which are provided by any of the cloud provider. Okay. Something like Azure. So Azure is provided by Microsoft. AWS is provided by Amazon. Google Cloud is maintained by Google. And Oracle Cloud is maintained by Oracle. So whenever the terminology you heard about cloud or when you hear about cloud, cloud is nothing but you are using the resources over the internet from the provider of the server services. Okay. So what are the resources? So what exactly you mean by a resource? Resource is nothing but if you are storing some data on the cloud, so you are using the storage resource. That means whatever the storage hardware the provider is keeping in their data center, so you are using that storage devices to store your data. Something like Google Drive. So Google Drive is a cloud-based solution. We call that one normally we call those services as a software as a service. So which we will be seeing in the service model. So what do you mean by cloud computing? Cloud is nothing but the resources which we are using over the internet. So what exactly do you mean by cloud computing? So cloud computing is nothing but we are using different resources, something like networking, storage, compute engine, platform as a Kubernetes engine, Docker, all these things if you are using on the third party's hardware, that we call it as a cloud computing. Okay. And when it comes to different types of clouds, the first one is deployment models. So when it comes to deployment models, we have total three type of deployment models. So what are these three? So we have public deployments, private cloud, hybrid cloud. Okay. So as you're aware of that one, whenever we are talking about Azure, it is a private cloud. So that means the cloud where all the users can access over the internet. So the users who are there on the internet, the users who are present on the internet, present on the internet. So that cloud we normally called as public cloud. So I am on the internet. If I'm able to use Azure cloud, that will become your public cloud. So in simple statement, if I want to define what do you mean by public cloud, the cloud which I can use over the internet, that I call it as public cloud. And when it is coming to the private cloud, it is bounded to sorry.
Okay.
Coming to the private cloud, it is nothing but bounded to single organization. That means if you are working for X organization and if that is used only by that organization, then that we call it as a private cloud. In simple statement, I will say that if there is a application which is only used by your organization and that application is not accessible over the internet, then that type of application or that type of hardware or that type of deployment, we call it as a private cloud. Okay. Now coming to the hybrid cloud. So what do you mean by hybrid cloud? Hybrid cloud is nothing but it is a combination of public and private cloud. It is a combination of public plus private. Something like if you are working in a banking sector. So in banking sector, if something like HSBC is one of the client. So what HSBC will do is, whatever the applications they have, the front end, they will put that application on the cloud, and whatever the sensitive data is there about the users or the customers, what they will do, they will place those databases in their infrastructure itself. That means the front end application which we are able to see. That means whenever you go to browser and whenever you hit on hsbc.com, whatever the page you are seeing, that will be hosted on cloud. And whenever you store any data, something like your username, password, your bank details, your location, all these things, whatever the transaction you have done, so it will be stored in a database, right? So that database will be present in HSBC own compound, okay, in that premises itself, HSBC premises itself. So these type of combination, we called it as a hybrid cloud, okay. That is about the deployment models. Coming to the service models. Service models are three types. Okay, service models are of three types. So the first type is infrastructure as a service. Second one is platform as a service. Third one is software as a service. So let me start with software as a service. Software as a service is nothing but from application to hardware, everything will be maintained by the provider itself. So if I'm using facebook.com, that is a SaaS service. That means application and hardware for that application is maintained by provider itself. Okay. Okay. So now coming to the platform as a service. So here the example is fb.com. And I can say youtube.com, Dropbox, Google Drive. So these are all software as a service examples. Okay. So coming to platform as a service. So what do you mean by platform as a service? Okay. So in platform as a service, the best example is databases. I think you have heard about managed services. So what do you mean by managed services is, except application and data. So whatever the application code is there, that application code only will be managed by the users, and the remaining underlying hardware, operating system, runtime engine, all these things will be maintained by provider. Okay, clear?
Yes, clear.
Are you able to see my screen? Is it visible now? Hello.
Yes, yes.
Okay, sorry. So coming to the infrastructure as a service. So whenever we are talking about infrastructure as a service, here in the platform as a service, the best example is databases. So whatever the databases are there on the cloud, all the databases, and here we have different things, logic apps we have, functions we have. So whatever the managed services are there. So what do you mean by managed service? Managed service is nothing but these are owned by the cloud provider itself. So we are just updating the application code here, and everything is taken care by the provider. It may be Azure, it may be Google Cloud, it may be AWS Cloud, or it may be Oracle Cloud. Any cloud, if any managed, suppose if someone is coming and saying that I have a managed service and I am using that. So whenever some person uses managed services, that means it is maintained by the cloud provider, and we are just as a customer, we are updating our code and we are deploying on the provider's hardware. I will show you on the picture. Okay, and when it comes to infrastructure as a service, here we are, from where our responsibility starts is from the operating system. So let me know if you can see my entire screen. IaaS versus PaaS versus SaaS. So here, if you see this diagram, as I told you, in the software as a service, the entire stack, whatever the stack we have, it is maintained by Microsoft. Okay, and in the platform as a service, I mentioned whatever the application and whatever the data is there, that is managed by us, and the remaining entire stack is maintained by the by the Microsoft. And when it comes to infrastructure as a service, the underlying hardware, so whatever the hardware will be there, it will be maintained by Microsoft. And from operating system to the upper layer, whatever we are using, operating system, runtime engine, and the application. So these things which we use, it is managed by us. So what do you mean by a runtime? Anyone can tell me what do you mean by a runtime here? Any idea what do you mean by a runtime? And what do you mean by operating system? I think you know. So what do you mean by a runtime then? Yes or no? Do you know what do you mean by a runtime?
No, I have no idea. Maybe I know,
Okay.
but no.
See, operating system is nothing but only we have two type of operating systems. It may be Linux, it may be Windows, right? So we have only two types of operating system. In Linux, we have different flavors. something like CentOS, Red Hat, Ubuntu, Debian, OpenSUSE. So these are all the different flavors of Linux, but only we have two operating systems, Linux and Windows. And whenever it comes to runtime is nothing but it is something like your programming packages, something like Java application. If you want to run Java application, you need to have Java runtime engine. If you want to run Python, you need to have Python runtime engine. If you want to run Node.js, so you need to have enpm package which need to be installed on your machine. So runtime engine is nothing but whatever the programming language you are using, the software related to that programming language that we call it as a runtime engine. For Docker, we have Docker engine. Okay, for Kubernetes also, in the underlying, we will be using something called as Docker itself, right? Container D Docker. Okay. So this is related to the deployment models and the service models. Okay. Any questions till now? Before I jump into the other topics, any questions till now?
I have no questions.
Okay. Kishore, any questions?
No, Shekhar, it's good.
Okay. So now the next important thing whenever it goes to the interview. So if you are putting something like 2 to 3 years or 3 to 4 years of experience, this question is normal. Okay. This question is normal. Whenever it comes to the cloud, you need to understand what do you mean by a region? What do you mean by an availability zone? Okay. What do you mean by availability zone and what do you mean by a region? So in a simple term, if someone asks you what do you mean by a region, the simple two-word answer is it is a geographical location. Region is a geographical location. So what do you mean by a geographical location? It may be any country, okay, on the globe. So if I want to tell some examples about the region, US, in US, we have multiple regions. US East 1, we have US East 2, we have West 1, West 2, something like Europe. So we have North, we have South, we have East, we have West, we have Australia, we have Asia South, Asia North, Southeast Asia, something like this. So whenever you see these type of terminologies, you need to understand this is a region. So a region is a simple term. In a simple two-word statement, we can say that it is a geographical location. So now what do you mean by an availability zone? So whenever you create a region, in a region you cannot deploy anything. Remember, region is nothing but a geographical location. If you want to use that region, we need to use something called as availability zone, something like as where you are deploying your data center, where you are deploying your data center. Availability zone is nothing but it is a deployment area of your application. Okay, it is a deployment area of your application. That means where you are storing or creating some application. Okay, clear? Any questions? So something like, suppose if this is my region, and here what I will do in availability zone, I will create a data center. I will create a data center. So what do you mean by a data center? Any idea? So what exactly do you have in a data center? In a data center, what do you have normally?
Okay, all the resources, hardware, network,
Something like
and
networking devices, storage
yeah,
devices,
yes,
firewalls, cooling devices, power
yeah,
devices. So all these things you will have in a data center. Okay. So data center is a combination of all these devices. So whenever we say a data center, it is a combination of multiple racks, right? So in one rack, you will have the compute related storage, compute related resources. In another rack, you will have storage related. In another one, you have network related. So these are nothing but a combination of different racks which you will normally use to create your infrastructure. Okay. So now if someone asks you what do you mean by an availability zone? So you need to answer to them as it is a deployment area of your application in Azure data center. Okay. It is a deployment area in your Azure data center. So got these points, these 2 points? Any questions?
no questions.
Okay. 1 second. So I think, let me know if you are able to follow me or not, so that I can change myself and I can try to be within your page. Okay.
Sure.
So now, okay. So now let me start with the Azure networking. Okay. So I will just give you an overview and tomorrow I will show you the entire demo how we need to create the Azure network. Okay. So now when it comes to Azure networking, so simply understand when I talk about Azure networking or Azure virtual network, it is a virtual network or LAN. Okay. It is a virtual network or LAN which is created in Azure data center, which is created in Azure data center. So what do you mean by this one? What do I mean by this one? So whenever you create the network, it is virtual to Azure. Okay. It is something like you will have a hardware and on that hardware, there will be a software which is called as virtualization. And by using this virtualization, you will use something called as API. So you will have a virtualization software. And on top of that, you will have something called as API, which is related to your virtual network, which is related to your virtual network. So by using this API, what I'm doing is on this hardware, something like see it as a switch. Okay. It is a switch. Okay. So what I'm doing for my organization, I am creating a network on this switch so that I can create different resources in my cloud. Okay. So what do you mean by a network? So we have discussed all these things, right? So if someone asks you, what do you mean by a network? So what will be your answer?
Network is connecting resources in a LAN or WAN.
Yeah. So in a simple statement, if I want to say network, it is communication between two different devices or two different networks, right? So if I have a source and I have a destination, if I want to have a communication established between these two devices, what I need to do is I need to create a network. It may be LAN, it may be MAN, or it may be WAN. Okay, it may be anything. Local area network, metropolitan area network, or it may be wide area network. Okay. So whenever you talk about LAN, a LAN is nothing but it is a virtual network. Okay. It is a virtual network. See, understand whenever you talk about the LAN configuration, it is within your organization. Within your organization, you are only creating the local area network. Okay. Suppose if this source is in Hyderabad, which is in India, and if this destination in USA, something like Florida, if I'm connecting these two, suppose see, this is my X organization and this is also my same X organization. Organization branch is in Hyderabad and that branch is there in USA. So here in Hyderabad, I will have LAN. In USA also, I will have LAN. If I want to communicate between these two different LANs, I will use something called as WAN, Wide Area Network. Okay, that means if I want to communicate within the LAN in the same building, I will use LAN. If I want to communicate between two different LANs, then I will use something called as wide area network. So here when I talk about the virtual network, it is a isolated network which we have created in Azure data center. Okay. In Azure data center, we are creating a isolated network. Okay. Clear?
Give me some example for man.
Within a city, suppose see, in a Florida, suppose I think you are well aware of Florida, right? In Florida, you have two different places. I don't know two different places. I'm just taking as X place and I have Y place. Okay.
Okay.
Something like in the same city, you have two branches. Okay. X is an organization. It has A branch in X organization in the same Florida and Y building in the same organization in the same city. See, that is the you will have the possibility, right? Same organization will have two different buildings in two different locations within the city, right? Or between cities, right? So, but whenever I talk about metropolitan area network, that is nothing but within the same city, if you have two different data centers, and if you want to connect the two different data centers, then I will use metropolitan area network. Okay? Clear?
Okay. Do we need internet connection?
See,
That is what my question here. Man using internet?
see, see. Internet means, so can you elaborate what do you mean by an internet?
Internet, it is a wide connectivity, which is provided by the service provider, and we able to connect the long distance computers through the providers.
Okay. So let me ask you one question. What do you mean by intranet? What do you mean by internet?
Intranet is wide communication, which we can do all web stuff within a LAN,
Okay.
not beyond the WAN.
See, whenever I'm talking about the internet, okay, I only know the application name. Okay. I don't know the IP address. So what I'm doing, I am just hitting the application domain name, and over the internet is nothing but I am connecting to my ISP provider, internet service provider, who is providing me the service to connect to the different data center. Internetwork. Internet is nothing but it is something which are a large number of LANs are connected with each other. Okay, there will be multiple LANs which are connected to each other And if you want to connect different LANs over the network, if you want to communicate between different LANs, so we are using simple router. That what I'm doing is from one router. Okay, let me show you the diagram. LAN, WAN, and MAN. I'm just saying so that it can understand. I don't know. I think I don't know whether that will be easy for you to understand. I'm just saying which will be easy for you to understand. Yeah, this will be easy for you to understand in a better way. So if you see this diagram, okay, let me open another one. Okay, this will be very easy for you to understand. Okay, so if you see here, what I'm doing is I am connecting different LANs as a MAN, metropolitan area network, and different MAN will have WAN connectivity. That means what that this means is, in a simple statement, this is my off. This is my office in Hyderabad 1, and this is Hyderabad 2, and these two Hyderabad 2 are connected via metropolitan area network, and this is office in Bangalore, this is in Chennai, this is in USA. Okay, so all
my
yeah,
question is simple, like, the man, are we using like a provider, or it is, though we using a provider is a dedicated line, or we
everything
are
is
using
dedicated line. Inter, WAN, MAN, LAN. Everything is dedicated. Internet, whatever the word you are using, internet is working on optical fiber cables. If I'm connecting to you right now on the Zoom, all my traffic is going via optical fiber cables itself. There is no satellite till now. So whatever the internet is working right now, all my internet is working on optical fiber cables. Okay. So I will show you that one. So all my traffic from India, if my traffic is going to USA, there are only two exit points from India. One is located in Mumbai, another one is located in Chennai. Okay. So whatever you have asked the question, it is a dedicated lines. Yes. All my internet traffic is on my optical fiber cables. There is nothing else which is taking our traffic. Okay. Got my point?
Okay. I do have some question, but no, that's okay. No, we don't want to spend this much time in it.
No, no,
We'll
no. You
move
can
to
ask me. You can ask me.
no.
No issues.
Let's say, a dedicated line. Then no, we can't. Each and every big companies, can't provide a fund for running a fiber cable, continental to continental, or under the sea, right? So definitely it is,
See, there are
a provider,
only
but no,
in
there will
India.
be a bandwidth will be a dedicated, commitment. But no, line, it won't be dedicated. I believe so.
See,
So
I will tell
let's
you.
say,
I will tell you.
in a in a metro area, like you want to connect office building A and office building B on the same company, if it is a short distance, and you can take any provider and you can run your line, own dedicated line, and it is maintained by it is depends upon how the contract would be. As you said, like in a cloud, it is what we managed services and non-managed services. Maybe few of them, the cable, the connection, and hardware, it is maintained by the service provider, but the total line expenditure and everything, it is owned by you. It is something like I thought like the dedicated line and dedicated bandwidth and dedicated something, it is you can get it in the overseas, continental to continental.
Okay, let me tell you the answer for this. Okay. When I say about dedicated connectivity, I'm not saying that X company will lay their own optical fiber cables. Okay. When I use this terminology, dedicated cables or dedicated connectivity, see, I am using a dedicated internet connection to my house. That does not mean that I am laying my own fiber to the internet service provider, right? What I'm doing, I'm taking them on the lease, right? So I'm renting that from my provider to get connected me to the internet. In the same way, whenever I talk about any two data centers, and if I'm saying that the two data centers are connected by a dedicated connectivity, that means that there will be any third party, something like Tata Communication. If I talk about America, we have Verizon, AT&T, Sifi Technologies, Megaport. So these are different types of providers who will be providing them that dedicated connectivity. See, I think you are working on premises, right? I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure what exactly you are using.
Yes, if let's say dedicated means the data.
You are leasing, simple thing. You are leasing them.
I'm leasing that I understand. Is the same pipeline or the same optical, it's carrying other company data too?
Yes. See, I will tell you simple example.
That
If
means
that is 10
it's a dedicated line is nothing but dedicated bandwidth that I'm leasing. So there is a guarantee for my bandwidth. That's it.
Correct. If you are taking 10 Gbps link, so your bandwidth will be 10 Gbps at all the time. Okay, so there will be no drop, there will be no increase. Okay, so 10 Gbps will be coming to you, your organization. Okay, dedicated means bandwidth itself. It is not about the optical fiber cables.
Okay.
So I'm just saying that if you are connecting two different buildings, you will have the optical fiber cables. Okay, but I'm not saying that that will be laid by Azure or it will be laid by your on-premises team. It will be leasing from someone who will have the optical fiber cable, and we are leasing the bandwidth in that optical fiber cable. Okay. See, whatever the traffic is going outside of India, it is totally around 80% of the traffic which is going, it is handled by Tata Communication itself, TCL. If I want to talk about US, it is mostly on the AT&T and Verizon. Okay. If I talk about Singapore is having Singtel. Singtel is one of the companies, Singapore Telecommunication, which will be handling. So see, from Tata Communication, it will go to Singtel, and from Singtel, it will communicate to Singapore local machines, okay, local data centers. If Singtel is coming to India, they will take the TCL optical fibers and they will use the bandwidth in their optical fiber cables. Okay, but they are owned by TCL, but bandwidth is used by Singtel. Suppose if they want to use 1 GB or 10 GB, that is their own wish. Okay, so that is about the network. So now coming to the next point, So whenever we're talking about the network, the next technology which we use is subnet. So subnet is nothing but subnetwork. So we are dividing our network into smaller parts for better utilization. So what we are doing, I'm creating a network, and if I want to use the network accurately, efficiently, what I will do, I will divide the total network into smaller parts so that it will be easy for me to maintain. Okay. That normally we call it as a subnet. After that, we have something called as routes. So I think routes are route tables. Anything is fine. So in Azure, I will use routes. In AWS, I will use route tables. Okay. So whenever it comes to routes, what it will do is it will tell you the direction to your destination. Suppose if I want to go from Azure data center to internet, I have an internet gateway. If I want to go from Azure data center to my AWS data center, then I can use VPN or ExpressRoute. So VPN, I think you have heard about that. VPN is nothing but it is a connectivity over the internet between two different networks that we will discuss in detail. So whenever we come into VPN, we will discuss how exactly that connection will work. Sir, what do you mean by route and what do you mean by route table? It is nothing but simply, it is a direction which will tell you where you need to go. So direction, it will tell you the direction to the destination. It will tell you the direction to the destination. Okay, clear? Any questions regarding to subnet and route tables or routes?
I'm good.
So next, coming to the network security group. So what do you mean by network security group? Network security group is nothing but it is a firewall. So what do you mean by firewall? If you want to accept any traffic, or if you want to deny any traffic into your Azure data center, or if you want to accept any traffic which is going outside of Azure data center, or which is coming into your Azure data center. So simple terminology firewall which will allow your traffic or deny your traffic onto your resources. So there are two types, inbound and outbound. So I think you know the terminology. Inbound means which is coming towards Azure. Outbound means which is leaving your Azure. Okay. Inbound means coming to the Azure. Outbound means which is leaving your Azure data center. That we called it as a network security group. Okay. So the last concept for today is VPC peering. So what do you mean by VPC peering? VPC peering is nothing but communication establishing between two different virtual networks within your Azure. If you want to have communication happen between two different VNets, what you need to do is you need to create a VNet peering. It may be in the same region, it may be in the different region. Okay, suppose if Jay is there in USA, if I'm there in India, if we have two different VNets, I can use VPC peering for having the communication. So VPC peering in a simple statement, if you want to connect between two different VNets, you will use this concept which is called as VNet peering for the communication. Is it clear? Any questions? Network, subnet, route tables, NSD, and peering. Any questions?
I'm sorry, say it again. The peering, VNet to
See,
VNet,
peering is
it's called peering.
we suppose if you want to have the communication between VNet to VNet, okay, I have one VNet. Suppose you have created, suppose you are in a X company I'm in a Y company. Okay. So both we are using Azure itself. Okay. So if I want to have the communication between this VNet to this VNet, what I will do? I will just create the VPC peering. What I will do? I will create the VPC peering. Okay. So in simple statement, if I want to say, if you want to communicate between two different VNets, you will just use VPC peering as the first option. So there are multiple options. VPC peering we have. We have VPN. So this is also the second option which we have. If you want to have the communication establishment between two different VNets. Okay? Clear?
Yeah, clear. We will come to know that now what is the pricing point, what is the constant pro with two connectivity, right? Peering
See,
and VPN.
VNet is, there is no cost for virtual network. So there is no cost. The only cost in the VNet is whatever the traffic is leaving your data center and coming into your data center. Okay. So let me show you pricing for virtual network in Azure. See, Azure network in Azure is free of charge. Every subscription can have up to 50 virtual network across all regions. VNet peering links to two virtual network either in the same region or different region and enables you to route traffic between them using private IP addresses. That's what I'm saying. Inbound and outbound traffic is charged both end of the peered networks. Okay. Network compliances such as VPN gateway and application gateway that run inside a virtual network are also charged. So if you are going to create any VNet, there is no charge. The only for the traffic which is going outside and coming inside will have charge. And whenever you are creating the VPN gateway and application gateway, for that you will have charge. Okay? Clear?
Yeah,
See, for
yeah, clear.
inbound data transfer for 1 GB, it is $0.01. For outbound also, it is the same thing. Suppose if that is in central US. If I come to India, central India, if I go on rupee, see, it is not even 1 rupee for single GB. Okay. So see, inbound data transfer zone 1 2.943 GB. If you do the peering in different regions, if that is the same region, this is the cost. If that is in different region, then this is the cost which you will be incurred when you will use these services. Okay, got it?
Yeah, got it.
So that's all for today. So tomorrow we will join